I would say it's fair to say that just about every skier is scared of seeing an A-frame in their video or being called out for having an A-frame in their skiing. So this video is about addressing that topic of the A-frame, making you less scared of it, understanding some anatomy, because that is a huge part in understanding, what you may perceive is causing an A-frame. And it has a big deal to do with the inside foot and leg mechanics. And how that affects your balance on the outside ski and how it affects the tracking of both skis. So we're going to get into some anatomy first and then do a little playing around with just inside of ski boot shells here. So we're going to be putting these guys on and you should do the same thing, so get them ready. And I think you'll discover a bit of a breakthrough, a feeling of far more stability, far better edging control. So let's get stuck into it. The anatomy first. Have a look at this skeletal chart and notice the shape of the femur bones. They are not straight. This angle that you see where it's coming in towards the knee is actually referred to as the Q angle. And females have a larger Q angle because of the wider hips than men. And we're all going to have a slightly different one. But the thing I want you to notice is there is a V shape, a pinching in shape, an A frame, what you may think knees close together shape that is naturally there when both feet are down on the ground balanced. So this skeleton's been put in good posture. And so with good posture to point both feet straight ahead, there is a Q angle present. Now if you have a look at the chart over here, you'll see that the leg is turned out and actually the femur looks straight now. So when you see a straighter femur, you're actually going to see a foot that is turned in the direction that's straightening the femur out. So that's really important because I think people chasing parallel thighs and parallel shins, but not realizing there's a difference between the two, is actually causing them to have some divergence. So skis sort of splitting, and the V, instead of being here, is in the skis, and now the skis are going off in different directions. And that is not a good thing. We want them both tracking more in the same direction. So anatomy, main takeaway here is when we stand with our feet hip width apart, which is where you want to ski, we have a V shape naturally. So don't take that away. Appreciate it, respect it, keep that there because you'll actually see that in just every good skier. This will be present and it really helps with stability. So let's now put some ski boots on, just the shells, take the liners out and do some experimenting with some edging to see this in effect. So you got your ski boots on, the liners are out, so you're just standing in your shells. You can have footbeds in or footbeds out. The first test is just try and balance on one edge of your boot. So say my right foot, I'm not talking about balancing on a flat ski because unless all you want to do is straight run, that's not what we need to be doing in skiing. We need to be balancing on the edge. And the first thing I want you to notice is in order to put the pressure to the inside edge of my foot and balance somewhere there, notice what the inside leg does. See how it creates a rotation this way to try and counterbalance and help me stay on this edge. If it doesn't, for instance, if it stays out here and I go to that edge, what I've got to do is I've got to really shift my upper body out. Okay, so if I want to stay more aligned, for instance, say not over-angulate or be able to still incline and not block the inclination by over-angulating here, because there'll be people in different parties. Some people will be an over-angulator. Okay, some people will, they'll just be the person that keeps falling on the inside ski. So notice if I try and balance on the inside edge, left foot this time, what should naturally happen, or what you'll find makes it much easier, is if you exaggerate the V position of the thighs. And there's a feeling of muscular activity inwards this way because I'm trying to get the weight to balance on the inside edge. So there's like a rotation and an inward pull. Really important to mention the inward pull. It's not just a twist on the spot, it's kind of an inward pull. This leg does the same thing to almost cancel it out. Now on this cancelling out or double inward rotation, I'm going to give an analogy of aeroplanes. So aeroplanes, if you think about this as the analogy, if there's a propeller on one side that is like more powerful than, say, a propeller on this side of an aeroplane, you could hopefully imagine, like, if this is more powerful, you're going to get a rotation of the plane. It's not going to go straight, it's going to go off course. Vice versa, if the plane had a more powerful engine on this side and it was overpowering this one, you'd get a veering off in this direction. But if they're of equal power on the same place along the wing, the plane will go straight. Okay? So if we want to bounce on the edge and be able to stay there, you could think about what's going on outside and inside is an almost equal effort to kind of turn in. They cancel each other out. Now things go straight. If both propellers are turning in the same direction, we get a rotation. So if I'm just talking about balance, being able to balance on that edge, this cancelling out idea or anti-torque of the inside to the torque of the outside can help you be there. When it goes, now things start moving. Okay. The inside leg can now be thought of as an anti-torque or a balancing out mechanism to the outside leg. So if you're overdoing this outside knee movement, the inside leg can actually totally regulate what's happening here, and to the point where if someone overdoes it, and you'll see people overdoing it, so this twist even comes from the pelvis too much, you start getting a hip dump. And notice the effect here is also now twisting this leg out. So you're looking for the Goldilocks amount of like the Q angle sort of being held, and your intention of trying to bounce on the edge and keep pressure there, directing all your energy at that spot. Okay, so first thing is just playing with noticing it makes it much easier when you use this leg across and almost, I mean, here you go, there's the javelin turn. So it's not about turning the leg across the other one, or I don't think anyway. There's actually a stability thing, and you'll see basketball players too. They'll come in, knees will go in, surfers, knees are in, inside edge of both feet. It's a really stable position. Okay, so respect that, use it to your advantage to be able to balance better on the outside ski, on the outside ski. So anti-torque and helping to regulate too much. So if I'm a knee driver, like I slam here, you can actually use this leg to help start cancelling that out. So both together helps you go straight. I now want to talk about edging. So the effect on balancing and how you are able to create edge angles in your ski turn. So if I simulate how I would do an edge roll on like a really easy run, this is what I would do. And hopefully you can see the Q angle, this natural alignment here, is still present. So when I simulate this, what I feel is it is actually weight from this part of my body that is helping me now tip and create the edge angles. Okay, it's from here, so flexing down that is doing that. It is not from me tipping particularly this little toe out, because you should try this. If I start with that little toe out, I straight away feel less stability, less like a feeling of weight and security here when I roll that out. And see, here's that look of like the femurs being parallel and the shins kind of looking parallel, but remember what effect that has on where the foot wants to point. And if you feel it inside your boot, I feel like my foot is uncomfortable and wants to point this way. So if you're the kind of person that is really over edging with the inside knee, you're most probably going to start creating tip divergence. Tip divergence, and when you get that tip divergence, now we start seeing an A-frame appear. Okay, so what really causes an A-frame is not so much this. An A-frame is more a tip divergence, which will spread the skis apart. And the second thing that really I think is an A-frame is when you've got a too wide a stance. I mean, just like an in-rigger, it's perfectly acceptable in an in-rigger to have an A-frame because you're using it as a crutch. But just think about if you take them to real skiing, you don't want to be leaning on this ski. So what people are doing is they're too wide a stance. The wider stance, because the foot's under them, they can put their balance on it and your body will. It'll choose the easiest option. But if you don't give it an option and you keep your feet closer and you actually create the edge angle through the V and the weight here helping to tip the both legs in the skis, it's far more stable and far more accurate. And all you're trying to do now is actually manage with your ankles and lower leg these angles of the boots. So I'll go here and I'll show what I see a lot of people do. They get here and they think, oh, I really need to tip this foot, and they do that. So the two things I feel, one, this foot wants to point in this direction, so it wants to go off this way. And then two, I actually feel like the pressure from tipping this way is actually pushing this cuff of the boot against my inner leg. So I'm not actually pushing on the outer part of the cuff here. So the cuff is actually pushing back inwards. And if there's pressure here, I will try and counter that with this leg. So you're going to cause all sorts of problems when you start getting the leverage pulling up on here. So that's from over tipping that inside foot. Yes, the femurs look parallel, but remember what I said. That's actually going to point this foot in the wrong direction. You're going to get tip divergence. Let's look at a real life example. So this skier, this is about a week before this video was taken. And she's working on this stuff in the academy with me. And so it's great to see someone tracking along with only a few days of working on this inside leg. So before, she was definitely trying to tip this foot over onto the little toe edge. And you can see the effect up the chain, what's going on with the leg, and also what's going on with the upper body. Because compare the two, and she's got natural angulation, or the body is now trying to stay with this outside foot as a result of working on this position. And so, yeah, I mean, straight away, there's already, you're ticking a couple of boxes by not even working on the angulation. It's happening naturally. You'll also see that the tip divergence is a lot less. So here, there's quite a lot of tip divergence. And this is what is going to, from a far away view, look like an A-frame. See there, like a slight A-frame. Now notice it's far more hidden on this side. Okay, there's still a little bit of tip divergence, but see the difference here. If I draw it in, it's far less. So there's still a little bit of a hangover, we could say, of trying to tip this foot maybe a little bit too much. So it doesn't need to be as far over, it could be here. Then both skis will actually track in the same direction. Remember the propeller analogy. She's got the feeling pretty good up in the hip, but then down at the level of the foot and the ankle, that area could be improved. But already, if this was you, you're someone that sees a similarity in yourself in how this person is skiing, you're already going to notice this kind of a change and a difference. And she mentioned it felt far more stable, far easier to transition into the next turn just with adding this change. Second thing I want you to notice is the effect of when this is tipping outwards on the outside leg. So we go over here again. If I am overly tipping this foot to create, you know, not symmetrical knee angles, now just play with if you have much power to apply pressure on the edge this way and sort of balance strongly here, okay? I don't feel like I've got it, but if I bring this back and that V position is brought back, I feel straight away now I can engage the muscles in here to keep the leg strongly positioned down, because the ski wants to roll off this way. So if you make movements in this direction, this leg actually wants to tip out. It's just a reflexive thing, a muscular thing. Too much here, you get this happening. Just enough in here, now this can push in, and see if your feet are close enough, they cancel each other out. I'm in a ski stance that is really strong, really strong. So in summary, the effect of tipping out too much of this inside foot and inside knee on the power and rotational edging ability you've got of the outside leg. I need to talk about the pistol squat video if you've seen that one, because there was a little bit of confusion from some people on how you apply that and the message in the pistol squat and then translating that into ski. So if you haven't seen that video, finish this one and watch it, because it relates and ties in really well and you'll get a bigger picture of what I'm trying to talk about. But here's a little bit more depth and understanding on the pistol squat. So a big takeaway with the pistol squat is if you need to go down, you want to be on the inside edge of your foot, and there's a motion of spiraling inwards on that leg to do it. So notice now we're tying together the Q angle message on one leg. Okay, so that Q angle is still sort of staying there for stability up through my pelvis and body. It's also respecting that at the level of the foot, if I go to the inside edge of the foot, things go this way. If I go to the outside edge of the foot, things rotate this way. Okay, so there's to going down. The piece that I think some people missed was, as you are, say, at this much edge angle, if you've thought about just purely doing a pistol squat that you would think about in like the vertical non-centripetal force world, non-turning force world, you'd probably do it like this, and your feet would be too wide apart. So the thing you need to do is, whatever inclination angle, edge angle you're setting, the pistol squat motion is relative to that. So notice, if I have this much edge angle, there's my base. This leg, if I was doing a pistol squat on it, would be moving in the direction relative to the base of the ski, not the ground or the snow. The base of the ski or the platform angle is what I'm doing. And see how that now helps me create this stable position, the V of the legs. I still have parallel shins, and it's mostly because I have changed the inside leg angle to being closer. So this is a big thing you want to do. So the feeling of engaging, because most of the weight's on this leg, if you're dead heavy, this will drag and rotate out. You have to have like intention to keep this leg closer. So notice as I bring it closer here, there is an internal rotation. So there's an inward spiral, but it's not just down, it's like across. Okay, so really big part. Go further over here. In fact, this much edge angle. If I need to balance on the outside ski, take this one off the ground. Notice to do that, I've got engagement up here. Okay, if I let that go out, now this foot is going to want to point that way. I don't get the stability, and now I get to this much edge angle, and all I can do is over-angulate, and I can't put pressure down here, so I'm going to slide out, I'm going to be on the inside ski. So the more edge angle you get, the more you've really got to feel this V position stays there. And actually it's just the same, even with this much, if I pretend I'm making an edge roll, I just feel there's engagement here, okay? There's almost a stretch at this hip. So my inside leg is doing an adduction, which is a bringing in of the leg towards the midline here. so many people are passive, this rotates out. Now the other leg is going to rotate out. So it's a feeling of keeping it across this way, like holding a pee, like you need to go to the toilet. That feeling, which is what I kind of get from javelin turns. This is all linking in now to javelin turns as well. But the big difference is now I'm also adding in what happens at the level of a foot and explaining to you that don't be scared of keeping this position, because look, I can still keep both feet pointed straight ahead. People think if you do that, the foot is going to point that way. But look, I can bring it back down. Both feet are pointed straight ahead because of the Q angle thing. And notice if I lose the Wii feeling or the javelin turn feeling, now feet are going to diverge. I'm going to get a splay. I will definitely have more of an A-frame and I'll find it harder to be stable on the outside ski. Common problem number one is down at the level of the foot, it's too much inside foot tipping. Okay, so when the foot tips this way to the outside, you create an external rotation of the leg. Now you undo the Q angle position, you undo the V, the stability, and you undo the ability to really use the weight of your body as well to like drive pressure to this ski, right? I feel like here, I've got no choice but to put pressure on this leg, and this one wants to go flatter. If I go here, even though my hips, I feel like my pressure's on my inside foot, I feel like I can apply pressure to this leg much more easily. Here, when I apply pressure to it, I get pushed to the inside of the turn. Okay, so the first problem you want to play with is, and you could lean against a bed or a wall, is playing with just finding your inside leg more in like a position where you're not pushed on the inside edge here, you're not pushing the pinky toe over, but you're almost you're just finding a balance of this inside foot so it's like at the same level as this one. And you'll find these muscles start working. And that's the thing you can hang on to so you can stop thinking and overthinking much. You're like, feel this muscle engagement here. That, I'm pretty sure now I've got my stable point right here going. Don't feel that, it's not happening. And it could be, not because you're doing that, but because of what you're doing down at the level of the foot is tipping over too much. That externally rotates, blah, 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 it does all the things again. This is Luca, and Luca is a big picture skiing member just like yourself. Now, I'm going to use this video just to point out a couple of things to finish up with that we've discussed in this inside leg video. The first being, I'm going to bring up a comparison of his other side turn to this one. First thing, it's pretty obvious the difference in body position and angulation. So we see a much more angulated position on his left footed turn. Now, what could be contributing to this? Well, there's a couple of things, but let's stick to the topic of this video session. One, have a look at the tips, the ski tips, what they're doing at the same point in the turn. Ski tips pointed this way. So they're actually almost diverging towards each other like a snowplow. This away from each other. Now, you felt early on in the video the effect of what the inside leg can do in terms of being able to balance on that outside ski. And I think if you're an instructor or you've been around skiing for a while, you would sort of agree that this looks like the person's more balanced on the outside leg. This looks like they're leaning in and having to use their inside ski too much. It's like they're falling a little bit too far this way. So remember that the inside leg, you don't have to tip that edge too much in order to make it track and be even like this one. It's actually far more important to use this inside leg, combine it with what the outside leg is doing to make you feel more balanced. Now, I know I've spoken to this person and he found that changing from tipping to the pinky toe edge and actually trying to do more of a pistol squat movement on his leg really helped things. So I'll show you a video in a second of him updated after watching the pistol squats turn video, and him not worrying about this A-frame look anymore. So see, there's still like a sort of an A-frame type look, but it's sort of more hidden, right? You wouldn't really pick on this person and say that that's their issue, okay? Whereas this side, you might. See, there you go. But look at the ski tip divergence. That's more really the issue. And where the weight, this person is trying to put their weight and balance, is too much on the outside edge of this foot. It needs to be more down the inside edge, and they need to keep their feet closer and tracking together. After Luca had watched the pistol squat video and started implementing it, and for him it was the spiraling inwards that really sort of like, that was his cue. He got that cue that helped him. And so we stop at this moment, and the skier just looks far more balanced on this outside ski. Both skis are more tracking cleanly in the same direction versus there's that divergence happening with the skis here. So the whole, like the ability for Luca to balance has been improved, even though, like, you know, the feeling may be that this knee was coming in instead of tipping out. And I spoke to him about this because he's one of the Academy clients, and he was saying how he was always trying to fix the A-frame, which he would get by tipping outwards with the knee and the foot. And so that was actually making it worse. And so now he actually almost exaggerated what he assumed was the problem at first, and things are much better. So he's actually looking more like, less like an A-frame, more balanced on the outside ski, and he felt way more stable. Before we wrap this up, I hope you're wondering then, if you're not allowed to tip the ankle or the knee to be making this movement, like, what really is it that is getting both legs and skis to tip over? Well, to me, when I get this position right, where the Q angle sort of respected with this tension in, and as I'm going over, keeping like the inside my thigh muscles activated, it's really my weight, my mass, that is moving the legs over, okay? And so as long as I'm doing that, I'm staying in a position which makes me feel comfortable and stable, I don't have to worry about tipping this foot so much. It takes care of itself, especially with a narrow stance. It's going to tip over because this one's coming towards it, and it kind of needs to get out of the way. And as long as you're not pushing the knee over, see, that'll cause that to rotate out. As long as you're feeling, and so when I say mass, like center of mass, this part, the heavy part, like where your weight comes down to the pelvis is what is going to drive the edge angle further. Okay, really important point. And as that happens, we're working on this inside leg so that the ski doesn't diverge, because a big part of what causes an A-frame is tips diverging. So if we can keep both our feet tracking parallel, keep ourselves stable by having this position, and use our center of mass weight, so this chunk here, you will feel you can drive edge angle very easily. You can control it very subtly. Okay, you don't need to push beyond where your mass is. Your edge angle is dictated by your center of mass moving from one side to the other, and you allowing it to go further. So I hope that answers then, if I'm saying don't over tip it, don't work it too much, then how do you create edge angles? How does this leg move? Well, if you play around like this, you'll feel that it just takes care of itself. You just have to make sure you're not mucking up with some of the things that really help, that comes from this V position and being more on the sort of like the center of the foot as opposed to tipping too far beyond it. So what we do with that inside leg that inside foot becomes so important. And, you know, saying that now just reminds me that, you know, skiing is a whole body effort. And when you move really well, it feels like everything is connected and working together. So that means just putting your awareness in some different places, like the inside leg and foot, for example, you can help bring back to like some of the fundamentals of like outside ski pressure, balance, being able to keep moving inside the turn. All those things are helped with what we discussed today. We also really took an appreciation of some anatomy, and hopefully that's helped some people just reconcile in their head this A-frame thing. Like some people who've been seeing that or get told that their legs are not symmetrical, you know, their first go-to, and if you check YouTube, the main thing is you're not tipping symmetrically, so you go to the ankle and you go to the knee and you try and tip both the same. That unfortunately undoes some natural tendencies that keep us stable, like this V position, this triangulated position. Triangles are very, very, very stable. And so that comes back to now, like, well, what causes an A-frame? Well, it's pretty simple, I think. One, diverging ski tips. Diverging ski tips are going to spread your feet apart, which is number two. When the feet are apart, that triangulated position is only going to show up even further. So when you see a beginner, they're going to naturally have that wider stance for stability, okay? So instead of trying to teach them to just tip that inside pinky toe and that inside knee over, respect their body naturally wants to do that. They only need to do that a little bit, and really what they need to do is they need to learn to narrow their stance. And that reminds me of a guy named Gord Brown, who I was lucky enough to be coached by when I was working in Canada, and he's ex-World Cup coach for the Canadian women's team. And he said, Tom, one of the first things we do when we get a new athlete on the team is one, we drop their center of mass lower by putting all the weight in the leg, so lots of leg work, and two, narrow stance. Early season stuff is all about skiing really feet close together. And in general, most of the best skiers you'll see can ski very narrow. So it's a skill you want to master. It's why these guys back over here had that naturally. It's even sort of more important on skis that don't have shape. When you've got shaped skis, you can kind of get away with it, but really the fundamental of the biomechanics, why, like how it feels stable, how the, remember when there's a V shape here and the feet are hip width apart, both feet can point straight ahead. So you're in the middle of the turn, the feet don't want to diverge, okay? Really, really important. So I hope that's explained what I think really can cause an A-frame, how you can go about fixing it, and then really the big part of how you can fix it is being aware of that inside leg and inside foot position. So get your ski boots out, do some of this practice, and then take it onto snow and just do some runs, trying to work on and feel it. And you'll know when it's right, because it feels right. Okay, remember to leave any comments down below if you have any questions about this one, if it makes sense, if there's still some missing information. Great thing about a subscription is I hear from you and I keep creating content that helps fill the gaps and help everyone continue to get better.